Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into the Cougar Spotlight Podcast, wherever you may be, however you may be watching us on the CACC network or on our official Caldwell Athletics YouTube page. I am Nick Iacovo, the host of the Cougar Spotlight Podcast. Today, we got a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to talk about bowling in just a few short minutes. Going to be giving you guys my rapid-fire previews over the sporting events that Caldwell has for the upcoming weekend. And we, of course, cannot discuss any later our two major basketball programs. The men's and women's teams have made the postseason. And let's start with that, actually. So both teams have been confirmed for the postseason. Men's and women's both have made the playoffs. Both games will begin on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. The women's game will tip off at 6 p.m., while the men's game will tip off at 7:30 p.m. The women's team does, in fact, host a playoff game this year, as women's will be hosting Chestnut Hill, while the men travel on the road to Jefferson. And Jefferson will be hosting the CACC championship this year, so if Caldwell could get a win there, they'll be staying on familiar grounds. But I actually do want to talk about that for a second. So Super Saturday, obviously, was over the weekend, and it was a fantastic day. Absolutely incredible. The fans were just out of this world. The reception to the event was great. There was a lot of fun, a lot of atmosphere that you could really, really feel. And you felt it particularly with that women's opening contest, as Caldwell used that home crowd to demolish the first seed Dominican University Chargers in a major, major upset that pretty much clinched them a home playoff win. They needed to win 2 of their final 3 games to clinch the number 2 seed, and with the win over Dominican and the 82-58 thrashing of the Women's and University Wildcats, Caldwell's women's basketball program will be hosting a playoff game for the first time since 2019, which is absolutely remarkable. Men's lost in a heartbreak to Dominican. However, though, they did manage to redeem themselves with a dominant performance over Wilmington, 91-82 at home, to clinch the 4 seed, as Caldwell will be heading to the postseason. But let's talk about that for a second. As I did mention at the outset, I'm going to be giving my rapid-fire previews, which I'll be going through all the sporting events. But I do want to give a little bit of an in-depth preview for these playoff games specifically. So Caldwell will be the 2 seed at home. They'll be facing the 3 seed the 3 seed Chestnut Hill. And Caldwell, the last time the women's program played Chestnut Hill, was a actually very good game, as they lost on January 25th. Caldwell, when I'm checking my note sheet here, they lost 77-78 on a last-second shot. Lucy Coogan was at the line, missed the final 2 free throws, or made the first free throw and missed the second free throw, and that pretty much sealed away Caldwell's chances of beating Chestnut Hill. So I think the Lady Cougars absolutely can dominate Chestnut Hill. I think they've got a very good program, and all eyes seem to be on Caldwell right now. As again, last time they had a home playoff game was 2019. That was before I even attended this university, or before I even attended college, for that matter. So I think there's a very strong opportunity that Caldwell can make some history. I think they have this revenge feeling that, you know what, we know we can beat these girls. They've showed they can beat them. Lucy Coogan has been on an absolute heater the last month. Janelle Lewis has finally gotten her groove back, so I think she's going to be outstanding. I think Caldwell, they're finally getting players back healthy. I think this roster is due for a big swing. And Coach Christy Conforti, they could feel the atmosphere. They felt that crowd at home. If you were there on Super Saturday and you felt the crowd, it was absolutely electric from the tip-off. And I think Caldwell's going to feed off of that. And I think that's what's going to help them really get over the hump, defeat Chestnut Hill, and then they'll go on to the semis. For the men, though, this is an interesting one, as Caldwell currently is 2-0 this season against Jefferson. This will be the 3rd time they will play the Jefferson Rams. The last 2 times they played was at home on February 8th, where they won 79-76, which was an amazing game. And then they went on the road in a non-conference game a little bit over a week ago on February 19th, where they would beat the Rams 67-58 on the road. Again, non-conference. However, though, that gives this team some life. But I think is most important is when you watch that Dominican game and when you watch that Wilmington game. Caldwell is currently, they're very banged up. They're very banged up on that men's roster. D'Angelo Horn was out for that Wilmington performance with an ankle injury. Isaiah Filbert was out of the lineup. You still have multiple other players that are out. And Caldwell managed against Wilmington to put up one of their highest scoring totals of the entire season with 91 points, led by Mark Heber, who was the leading scorer actually for a very long time with 20 points. And then Kirk Parsons exploded entering back to the starting lineups. Happy returns for Kirk Parsons. He returned to the starting lineup. We led all scoring with 22 points. Melvin Evans was also a star as well. For Caldwell to do that with an injury-plagued roster where they had bigs in foul trouble, for them to put up 91 points, shooting the ball lights out, you got Mark Heber back in a groove, I think we might have an upset here. I really do. I know it's damning unfeigned praise to say that a team that's 2-0 against the number one seed is coming in as an underdog, but I think it's true. I think there is a lot of doubt on this men's roster due to the injuries and due to how they played all season. But again, they're the best team in this entire conference when it comes to one-score games. And they are the best team in this entire conference when it also comes to games under 10 points. They have lost only one game by one score this entire season. One. And it was that Super Saturday game against Dominican. That's the only game they've lost within single digits. Within one basket. That alone should make any team fear Caldwell. And I think with players finally getting healthy, they got a big game at home on Saturday against Bloomfield. Senior day. Seniors getting honored. We got 4 seniors on this Caldwell roster that are going to get honored on that day. I think Saturday is going to be an emotional day for Caldwell. But then I think Tuesday is going to be a very much, let's get our head in the game. Let's get down to business. I'm going to quickly transition to this. Let's talk about bowling for a second. So I've always been a fan of the silent workers. I've always been a fan of the people who aren't loud. They don't say a lot. They just go out there, handle their business, and then go about their day. When I look at bowling, this is almost inarguably the most slept-on team in this entire university. And it's quite remarkable, too, considering they are the back-to-back CACC champions going for a 3P, the first team in this entire university to do so. And they've been recently making some headlines as Faith Perrin, a freshman on Caldwell's bowling squad, not only notched the CACC Rookie of the Week honors, she also made history by performing the first perfect game in program history. She rolled a perfect 300. That's the first time the program has ever had that. Faith has become an absolute superstar on this bowling roster. She's been one of the most dominant scorers all year, to go along with, obviously, the bowler of the year in Lauren Marks. She made the honor roll. Of course she does. She's phenomenal. Probably the first or second best bowler in this entire conference right now. Lauren Marks is as consistent as ever. But what's really nice about this women's roster is that they've gotten other stars to step up. You've got Alex Sardis, who's been absolutely incredible. She's been one of the 2 leading scorers on this entire bowling roster. Samantha Glunk has been phenomenally consistent all season long. Faith Perrin is now on a heater, as I mentioned earlier, to go along with Lauren Marks, who has been the ace for Coach Ken Yakuboski's bowling roster the last 2 years. They're 31-29. They are 3-2 in their last 5 matches. The 2 losses that they have been relatively close, coming down to the final frame. So you got to give them credit for that. They will now head on to the CACC Invitational in Lodi, the second Invitational on Saturday and Sunday. I'll give more of my thoughts on that during the rapid fire previews. But I want to give bowling their shine because they have been incredible. I got the opportunity to speak with them very early on in the season, almost in the preseason stages. And bowling, again, when I walk around this campus, I don't often see people talking about bowling. Bowling is kind of your fun game that you play on a Friday night with a couple of guys or a couple of gals. Bowling has been almost the most dominant team on campus. Again, 2-time CACC champions. You got the Bowler of the Year last year. Lauren Marks put together. I've said this and I stand by this opinion. I think Lauren Marks last season put up probably the first or second most dominant season a singular athlete has ever had in collegiate sports, especially at the Division II level. The awards that she won, the way she went about it, and then not to mention, you look back at some of the performances that she had, it was unbelievable, especially in the finals of the tournament, where in one of the games, they needed 3 strikes. The final frame, Lauren Marks stepped up there, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. Absolutely incredible. And I think, again, I said this a little bit in the Super Saturday episode. There is a sense that urgency matters. And I feel like there's a lot of urgency on this Caldwell roster to bring home that three-peat. I think they absolutely could do it. I think they now need to start clicking, and they have been. CACC tournament, not that far off. It's beginning in late March. I think if Caldwell can continue the streak that they've been on, you have Sardis continuing to improve, you have Glung staying consistent, you get Perrin, who's been great, Lauren Marks obviously continues doing her thing, but then you have other ones. Joanna Hyman Cruz starts getting back, polls really well. Ali Rumfield's been a little bit of a slump recently, but Rumfield's certainly picking it up. I think you got a very dominant and in-depth roster that can rival almost anybody. And Coach Gakaboski, I had the chance to talk to him in the preseason. He said, the three-peat's nice, but the big thing is that if they win, they go to the Division II tournament, which would be absolutely remarkable. And I think if Caldwell can make that Division II tournament, they are going to do some big damage. Cougar Spotlight Podcast. We'll be right back shortly. I'll be giving my rapid-fire previews in a few short moments. But first, before that, we have fan questions. I sent out a fan questionnaire to student athletes. We will read those questions and on the air. Stay tuned, people. Don't go anywhere, folks. Cougar Spotlight Podcast. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everyone, to the Cougar Spotlight Podcast. We are now moving on to a brand new segment that I like to call the Fan Questionnaire. We ask student athletes here on Caldwell University. We ask them to deliver some questions that they would like to be read out on the air, some of which have been athletic-based, some of which maybe not so much. But either way, we're going to have a fun time reading through these. I have not read the responses to these, so let us see what our student athletes have come up with. First and foremost, what's your favorite event to run? This is a track and field question. That's a very difficult question, I would say. I think overall, the most fun event to watch certainly is the 4x400 meter relay. But I think overall, I'm a hurdler here at Caldwell University. So obviously I would be inclined to say the hurdles. But I would actually say the 200 meter dash, I think, is the most fun event to run. It combines all the major parts of sprinting. It also combines a little bit of endurance. And I think, again, 200 meters, it's kind of that threshold mark between whether if you're a really fast sprinter or if you're a bit more of a mid-distance guy. Good question. Moving on to the next one. Oh, what's your go-to midnight snack? Oh, man. Oh, man. I definitely would say, obviously, some very obvious answers would be here. Cookies. Obviously, some people like to go with a little bit of a muffin. I've always been a fan. My go-to midnight snack has always been golden double-stuffed Oreos. I think those are absolutely tremendous. I think just late at night when you wake up, if you're trying to go to bed, gold double-stuffed Oreos, or even just regular double-stuffs, honestly. Just any double-stuffed Oreo with a glass of milk. Chef's kiss. Up next, Ooh. Ooh, this is a good one. What motivates you to become a better athlete? I've always thrived off of the feeling of competition. I always have said numerous times that I think to be a better athlete means there's always something to chase. So for me, I've always been somebody who's always looked at the chase rather than the destination. So for me, what motivates me to be better is the feeling of, we got the checklist. What is the one thing you haven't crossed off yet? Let's get to that. That's always been what motivates me. I don't get motivated personally by crossing off the checklist. I get motivated by the journey to cross that off. Very good questions so far. I'm very, very pleased by the student athletes that they've provided here at Caldwell University. Ooh, what's your favorite childhood TV show of all time? Now, I just want to preface this. As a 22, almost 23-year-old man, I was an early 2000s kid. Obviously, I was big into the Disney Channel craze. For me, the all-time favorite show when I was a child growing up, Disney Channel's Lab Rats. That was my show. And don't argue with me. Don't argue with me. I know you millennials want to say SpongeBob. It's not. You know it's not. It's Lab Rats, and it will always be Lab Rats. What's your favorite sport to announce? Okay, now this is a question this might cause some controversy. I think that one was a scorching hot take. This might be a scorching hot take. What's your favorite sport to announce for? I would say, you know what? On a personal level, I would say volleyball, because volleyball was the first gig that I got to be an announcer. I really do enjoy basketball. I've gotten very good with basketball. Football, obviously. I know so much about football. I think volleyball, because it provides just the right amount of challenge with learning the sport and all that. But volleyball is very fast-paced, so it means that you have to be quicker on your toes. I'd definitely say volleyball is my favorite. I would say the sport that I'm best at is 100% baseball or softball. But I think volleyball is certainly my favorite. Oh. So one of the student athletes, I could tell already which one wrote this. You're an energy drink guy. What's your favorite brand and flavor? So if you don't know me, I'm an energy drink guru. I drink a lot of energy drinks, some of which they make fun of me. The producers make fun of me all the time because they say that anytime I walk into a meeting, I always have an energy drink in hand. So I would definitely say my favorite brand is, I think the brand with the most quality is C4. I've always been a C4 guy. I think my favorite flavor all time, though, it's not a C4 actually. My favorite all time flavor is Alani Nu Blue Slush. People can't seem to get into it. I don't understand why, because I think Blue Slush is absolutely incredible. Definitely Alani Nu Blue Slush is my all time favorite flavor of energy drink. I think the best brand that I've had is C4. I never had a bad flavor with C4, so that's personally why I would go with that. Who are the top 5 favorite athletes of all time? Okay, let's get into that. So this one might actually be probably the hottest of all takes that we got here. I would definitely say overall, I think in my personal opinion, I think the number one all-time athlete. Because when I define an athlete, I define it not just in terms of the impact you've done on your sport. I also look at, is there anybody else that could duplicate what you do? I think for me, the number one greatest athlete in all time, in my opinion, I think it is Lionel Messi, who is number one. Lionel Messi has gone in every league he has stepped into in major soccer. He has been he's been inarguably the first or second best player right next to Cristiano Ronaldo in terms of soccer. He's got all the major awards. He's won everywhere. He just won a World Cup, which is the last thing he needed for his legacy. He finally got that. I think Lionel Messi, if he's not one, he's certainly within your top 3. Number 2 for me, as a track guy, I would say is Usain Bolt. I think Usain Bolt is almost inarguably the greatest sprinter ever. He basically, in every Olympics he was in, He won every gold medal in every major sprinting category. The only event he didn't win, he was disqualified for. Every other sprinting event that he was in, he won and dominated. Usain Bolt, to me, I think, is the gold standard for what a sprinter should be. Number 3, and this pains my heart because I'm a New York Jets fan, but number 3, it's got to be Tom Brady. I mean, 7 Super Bowls, you're not going to get any better than that. I mean, Mahomes recently had a chance to win that. Unfortunately, though, he didn't get it done. So I would say Tom Brady would be number 3. Number 4 for me is Serena Williams. I think Serena is inarguably the greatest tennis player ever, both male and female. The amount of Grand Slams she won. I mean, she won a Grand Slam while pregnant, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if most people can't win a Grand Slam, period. She won a Grand Slam while pregnant. Serena Williams is hands down not just one of the 5 greatest athletes ever. I think she's also probably on a short list of the most influential athletes of all time. And then number 5, it was a toss-up. This is a very big toss-up. It's between either Jackie Robinson or LeBron James. I would say, I think Jackie Robinson's more influential, obviously. But I would say in terms of greatest for me, I would say it's LeBron. LeBron is, I mean, he's the Swiss Army knife of basketball. He does more things well than anybody in league history has ever done. And I think most importantly, it's when you sit back and you look at his legacy, he is as close to perfect as you can have for a superstar reputation. I mean, he's got a lot of haters. I'm well aware of that. But there is no flaw in the character of LeBron James. There just is none. He's been the face of the NBA for the last 20 years. Probably going to be face of it for even longer. And it's not close. So that, I would say, would probably be my top 5. What's one item you can't live without? Ooh. For me, I mean, again, I'm a young kid, so obviously, the very obvious answer would be the cell phones. The cell phones would probably be the number 1. But for me, actually, I would say if there's one item I can't live without, it would probably, I would have to go with my phone. I'd have to go with my cell phone. Just because I think with how Apple has improved their cell phones, I think with the abilities to get like your cards now on your wallet app, with some electrical cars, you can use your phone as like a key now. So I think legitimately we've come now accustomed to where your cell phone almost is the thing you can't live without. I hate it, but it's the truth. How do you handle pressure during a meet? Now, this is very interesting. This is a very interesting question. I believe you got one more after this. Yep, it looks like we got one more. How do I handle pressure during a meet or a race? For me, I've always been said that pressure is created by what you do out on the floor. It was a quote by LeBron James. Pressure is created by what you do out on the floor. So I think for me, handling the pressure isn't necessarily just like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to perform. It's going to be handle your job, do what you got to do, and then worry about the repercussions later. So that's what I would say as far as handling pressure. Certainly there's a lot of other things. Like I love listening to music. I love just kind of zoning out, getting into my own personal flow. I think that for me is the best way I can describe handling pressure during a big meet. And then, oh man, if you had to eat at one place for the rest of your life, where would it be? If I had to eat from one place for the rest of my life, where would it be? Oh, West Essex Diner. I would say West Essex Diner is probably where I would say would be that spot. I think their menu's great. They have a fantastic sandwich called Sinatra. I love it to death. They just got multiple different options, a lot of different foods there. Everything's fantastically made. They got good appetizers. They got great sides. Their menu is fantastic. I would say probably West Essex Diner, I think, would probably be the answer. And that is that. Man, we had some very good questions. Great job. Great job, Caldwell University. I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on Acro. Can they go 3-0 to kick off the year? Again, a very short week. They just had a match earlier. Now they go on the road again to Maryland. I think Acro's got the squad to do it. I think we saw a little bit of that bridge pyramid debut that the girls were chatting about. It was excellent. I think if they can keep up a little bit of their flash and wow, I think Acro can finish off 3-0. Welcome back, everyone, to the Cougar Spotlight Podcast. We are back now for our final segment of the day, which we are calling Rapid Fire Previews. Here I will be giving my final thoughts, and I'll be giving my preview of the sport events coming up this weekend. So kicking things off, let's start off with bowling. Bowling has the CACC Invitational number 2 on Saturday and Sunday. Most of the teams in the CACC will be there. Dominican, Wilmington, Felician, Chestnut Hill will be there as well. As I stated in the bowling segment earlier, I think if Caldwell just continues to have that consistency with Sardis and Glunk to help along with Perrin and Marks as well, I think Caldwell could do some very big damage. And I think Caldwell, if they can put up a fantastic standing in that tournament, I think Caldwell's going to be in prime position for the CACC tournament. Men's and women's basketball will be home on Saturday against Bloomfield College on Senior Day. I think it's no surprise here. I'm expecting 2 major wins. I think the men's game should be a little bit interesting just to see the kind of lineup that I think Dean Johnson could trot out there. I'm not sure on the status of some of the players with some injury health. Along that, Bloomfield, they are still fighting for postseason. I do think, though, Caldwell should win handily in the men's game. I think the women's game is also going to be a lot of fun as well. I think we'll see a lot of the younger kind of bench talent step up a little bit with, obviously, I don't believe Coogan or Janelle Lewis are going to be playing big-time minutes in that Bloomfield game, so expect to see a lot of your other stars to step up. I think Brooke Corbett's going to have a big game. I think Brianna Carey come off the bench is going to have some good performances. Nia Clemens as well. I think we're going to see a little bit of Marissa Sorvillo. I think that women's game could be interesting. Women's lacrosse will travel on the road on Saturday at Southern Connecticut State University. Sarah Kate Schneider recorded 9 saves in the Cougars' last outing. However, though, this team has been plagued with injuries all season long as Schneider's filling in for the standout goalkeeper, Serena Barra. And Amanda Picosi's second season here at Caldwell. I think women's lacrosse, they have a lot of talent. Again, as I said, injuries don't help anybody. But I think there's a lot of talent, a lot of untapped talent as well. There's a lot of players that show a lot of promise. I think they got some very good freshmen on the roster as well. I think women's lacrosse genuinely could open some eyes if they start getting healthy. And I think they can really do some damage. Acrobatics and tumbling will head to Stevenson University on Sunday, as Acro's coming off the largest victory margin in program history with a 203.675 to 31.075 victory on the road against American International College. Amira boys' squad is off to a hot start as they currently sit at 2-0. I would expect Acro to have a very good showing at Stevenson. I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on Acro. Can they go 3-0 to kick off the year? Again, a very short week. They just had a match earlier. Now they go on the road again to Maryland. I think Acro's got the squad to do it. I think we saw a little bit of that bridge pyramid debut that the girls were chatting about. It was excellent. I think if they can keep up a little bit of their flash and wow, I think Acro can finish off 3-0. And then baseball will be opening up at College of Staten Island on Sunday in a doubleheader as they travel on the road. Baseball currently, they're picked 4th in the CACC North preseason coaches poll. And we'll see the head coach debut of Nick Luciano, as he spent the last 4 seasons as an assistant coach. He's been promoted this year to the head role. I think baseball's widely touted as I think one of the most talented rosters they've had in program history. And it's hard not to see why, as they've retained a lot of their big contributors. Liam Lombardi, who's been a standout all program long. He's back. Stephen Young Jr. just coming off a first-team all-conference season at second base. He's back. You get Brandon Scalisi on the mound as well, who's returning. And then you got a lot of youth coming in from the bullpen. I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on baseball this year. I can't wait to call a lot of their games. Baseball is one of my biggest passions to call for sports. And I really do want to see Caldwell baseball strive for excellence. And I think they got the roster now where they can take the next leap forward. It was a heartbreaking end to last year's season. I think Caldwell can really get off to a hot start. If they can get off to a hot start at College of Staten Island, they have conference play. I believe it's March 13th is when they open up conference play. I think Caldwell baseball is going to be in a very, very good spot. What a show today we had. We answered some of your fan questionnaires, got the chance to talk about basketball, some bowling, and just gave my rapid-fire previews. Thank you all so much for tuning in on the CACC network. Special thanks on behalf of Caldwell Athletics and the Communication and Media Studies Department. Thank you so much for watching the Cougar Spotlight Podcast. Be sure to follow Caldwell University Athletics and Caldwell University on all of social media pages so that way you don't miss any updates or any upcoming shows as well. I am Nick Iacovo. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Cougar Spotlight Podcast, and take care.